Welcome to my review of the most controversial movie of 2019 that eventually became a 2020 movie due to its controversy. That's Sonic the Hedgehog, directed by first-timer Jeff Fowler, starring Jim Carrey, James Marsden, and Ben Schwartz as the voice of Sonic. As you know, Sonic the Hedgehog is a beloved Sega character. He's basically Sega's Mario. And in this film, Sonic is residing in the small town of Green Hills, where James Marsden is a police officer. And when the government discovers Sonic, they deploy Dr. Robotnik, played by Carrey, to track him down. I think everyone on this platform that talks about movies at some point has referenced how terrible the original character design was. This is a rather unprecedented event. So many people complained about how awful that character design was that they actually fixed it. Now, usually I wouldn't really condone that type of thing. I don't like the idea that we have that much power over artists, but in this small case, I will say that we were right. Wow, that was really bad, but they fixed it. Sonic looks a lot better now, but does character design make a movie? Absolutely not. So how was this film? First, I should probably make it clear, this character is important to me. I do like these games a lot, and I played them quite often when I was younger. When my mom used to go to Acme, there was a Sega Genesis kiosk there, and I would usually spend most of the time while she shopped for groceries playing NBA Jam and Sonic the Hedgehog. Those are fond memories, but I've always been more of a Nintendo, PlayStation guy. But now that Nintendo does stuff with Sega, I can still play Sonic the Hedgehog games on my Switch whenever they release new ones. So I had my fingers crossed that the film would at least present Sonic as the character in a good light, have it actually be like him in the movie, and gratefully he is. I don't see any Sonic fans leaving this movie disappointed with the portrayal of Sonic. I think that Sonic in this movie is great. The voice work for him is really good too. And I liked his interplay with James Marsden. It was actually kind of sweet. By no means is this a great movie, but I think as a Sonic movie, it's about as good as I could expect it to be. I feel kind of about this the same way I felt about the Detective Pikachu movie. I went into that film knowing pretty much what I was going to get, and I got it. And it was made well, and they seemed to honor the character, at least in that form of Pikachu. And this film is exactly that. It's pretty much what I expected. There's not a lot of surprises, but I had fun along the way. If I were to really start over analyzing this movie the way I look at other films that are made for adults only, I think that would be rather pointless. This film is aimed at pleasing younger audiences while also making the family have a good time as well. And it does that. But the film doesn't pander to kids either. It doesn't treat kids like they're stupid. You can tell they actually cared, especially since they spent all that money and time to redesign Sonic after they realized that fans didn't like it. That shows you that there is a level of dedication to making sure that fans are pleased. And Jeff Fowler, the director, is trying to make a competent film. This by no means feels like a cash grab movie. It doesn't feel like they're taking Sonic and just cashing in on his popularity. They did try to make an entertaining movie that kids and adults can enjoy. Now, at the same time, I've not shied away from criticizing kids' movies before. I mean, just last year, Playing with Fire was an absolute disaster, although I loved watching it. That film felt so corporate and so spat out of a machine. It didn't feel like there was any energy or passion to it. While this film is admittedly extremely cliche and has a lot of familiar tropes, and as I said, no surprises at all, it does feel like they cared while making it. It feels like they were trying to make a film that people could genuinely have a love for. And I could see a lot of young kids really enjoying this movie and having fond memories when they get older thinking about seeing it for the first time. Jim Carrey, I have to talk about that man. I have loved him forever, ever since good old Ace Ventura. This feels like 90s Jim Carrey. He's having a blast in this movie as Dr. Robotnik. And if you look at his character and say, wow, he's really over the top. A, this is Jim Carrey. What the hell did you expect? B, familiarize yourself with the source material. Dr. Robotnik is by no means a quiet person who sits in the corner. There's no other way that this character should be portrayed. I described Jim Carrey's portrayal of him to one of my friends who really loves Batman Forever, by the way, as a slightly more tame version of Jim Carrey's The Riddler. And I mean that as a compliment. It was really nice to see Jim Carrey just being manic and crazy in this film. That was a really nice thing to see. James Marsden's pretty good. He plays his role just fine. I actually had no problem with any of the human characters, which is weird because usually when you have a film with a character like Sonic, they have this thing. Hollywood wants to always be like, you have to have all these people. And you're like, well, you could just have them like with tails and knuckles and just throw them into their kind of universe. But they always want to put people. And usually I hate it. The Smurfs films, for example. But that didn't bother me in this movie. And I think it's because Jim Carrey maintains that insanity throughout his entire performance. And so he never was that annoying villain they cut back to. He was enjoyable to watch. And the movie is fairly Sonic-centered, and so it didn't really feel like the humans were overshadowing him in some way. Let's talk about some negatives, though, because there are certainly some. For one, if you don't care about Sonic, if you've never played any of the Sonic games, if you have no connection to this character emotionally whatsoever, you're probably not going to like this movie as much as if you were a fan. But I think that's pretty self-explanatory. So naturally, I'm probably going to like this movie more than you if you don't give a shit about Sonic. In that case, you probably wouldn't really see the movie anyway, so I don't really think that necessarily applies. As I said, the movie has a lot of cliches and tropes. There's storylines that are forgotten entirely. For one, James Marsden's character is suddenly viewed as a domestic terrorist when he goes on the lam with Sonic. This is on the news. It's like a big thing, and yet he's able to go into buildings and walk around in public, and nobody sees him. Nobody's after him except for Dr. Robotnik, who seems to have complete control to do whatever he wants, permission from the government to blow up highways, and it's kind of hilarious if you really start to think about what's happening. The resolution for the domestic terrorism thing, without getting into spoilers, is laughable. They literally treat it kind of like a joke, and it just feels like, hey, forget about that thing. I know we said he was a domestic terrorist. I know his face is on the news and people are like after him and stuff, but like it didn't happen. It's fine. And you have to wonder, like, how did that get resolved? Because what you see happens towards the end doesn't seem to really resolve anything for that subplot. It's just kind of thrown away. It was like used to build tension throughout the movie, but then they don't use it throughout the movie, except for one scene where he sees his face on the news. I also want to talk about product placement. This movie has some very obscene uses of it. One character who is looking for a new place to live says, I found these apartments on Zillow. And then you get a close-up of the Zillow website with apartments. It felt like a commercial. But I think the big one that will be on most people's minds is Olive Garden. When I think of Sonic the Hedgehog, I just want some Italian pasta. That's always what's on my mind. I actually wrote this down so I wouldn't forget. There's a scene where James Marsden has his phone, so this is perfect. He has his phone, he's like, I don't have that many apps on my phone, except for Olive Garden. Because when you're there, you're family. But that's not the end of Olive Garden. There's even a scene where a military man says, have you tried their never-ending pasta bowl? It never ends! Not since a Michael Bay Transformers movie have I seen such obvious product placement in a movie, but, it came and went, and I forgot about it, and no one's really going to care. It's just funny that they went to all that trouble to have Olive Garden as a sponsor. I wonder if I can go get some pasta right now and tell them I saw Sonic and get, 20% off my meal. Do I have my ticket stub? I wonder if that's real. Look, it's really easy to poke holes in this movie if you really wanted to, and there's certainly things, as I've just mentioned, that, kind of made me roll my eyes, but I think the movie did its job. It's going to please Sonic fans. It's certainly better than most video game movies, without a doubt. This movie actually made me think about video game movies I'd love to see. One of the biggest ones is Metal Gear Solid. Now, I know that's in development right now, but Metal Gear Solid has a lot of potential as a movie. But the one that I am still, to this day, shocked hasn't happened is Metroid. A Metroid movie would be so fucking awesome if they get it right. If they got it wrong, I'd riot. But I would love to see a good Metroid movie. And this is a good step in the right direction. I'm going to give Sonic the Hedgehog a B. I was actually surprised by the fact that this movie wasn't too bad at all. It's perfectly fine. Families are going to love it. It's a decent family movie. It's got issues script-wise and stuff, but, there's this weird paradox now where there's these 30-somethings who are seeing these movies, who are excited to see them, who have to kind of sit back and remember, you know what, like, yeah, this is made for us, sort of, but it's also made for today's kids, and did they do an okay job? You know what, they kind of fucking did. Okay, you have to, like, accept that. And move on. And move on to Olive Garden. Guys, thank you so much as always for watching. Look forward to more reviews very soon. And if you like this, you can click right here and get Stuckmanized. Fuck, now I actually kind of do want pasta.